I've just opened Excel, and as a consequence I have a new workbook in front of me. If I look at the very top of my screen in what's called the title bar, the name of the new book is Book 1. If I wish to open up another new book on top of Book 1, I have a variety of ways. Like most things in Excel, you can do it more than one way. One way would be to click this button on the Quick Access Toolbar. We added this button in an earlier video. This button, when clicked, will create a new document, or more specifically a new file or workbook. Notice also that the shortcut key is mentioned, Control-N. If you were to press Control-N, you would also open up a new workbook. But I'm just going to click this button. I'll move this document to View. Looking at the very top of the screen, in the title bar, I can see this is Book 2. Sometimes, if you look at the very bottom of your screen, in an area known as the taskbar, you can see that you've got more than one workbook open. And when you rest on these buttons, this little peekaboo pops up and allows you to move Book 1 or Book 2. And you would simply click on which one you wanted to view. Sometimes these buttons overlap on top of each other, but either way, whether they're separate or overlapped, simply resting on the button will allow you to close and to move between files you've got open. Another way to move between files you've got open is to choose View in the ribbon. When you go to View in the ribbon, you'll see in the Window group that there's a button called Switch Windows. If I click this button, I can switch back to Book 1, which I have open in the background. If I then return to View and return to Switch Windows, I can go back to Book 2. This button can be very useful if you tend to work with multiple files at any one time. So what I would recommend is that you actually right-click the Switch Windows button and then left-click Add to Quick Access Toolbar. Now I don't need to go to the View tab in the ribbon, I can stay in the Home tab, and whenever I want to switch between windows or between files, I will simply hit this button. If I click this button, I can jump to Book 1. If I click this button, I can jump to Book 2. So this is the Switch Windows button. So a window is a file. A window is a workbook. A window is a document. Each file, workbook or document is in its own windows, and you can switch between those windows or between those files. And so you'll just get used to the terminology. These are workbooks or files or documents, each in its own window. Alright, so we have two files open. If I wanted to open a third file, another way to open up a new document besides clicking this button and pressing Control-N would be to use the ribbon. If I click on File and I click on New, I can see a variety of templates I can open. And I just want to open a new blank workbook. So in this case, I would just choose Blank Workbook, and there's my third file, and I'll just bring it into view. To switch between Book 1, Book 2 and Book 3, I could just use my Switch Windows button and return to say Book 1. There is no limit to the number of files that you can have open. The limit will ultimately be placed upon you by the power of your machine. Some machines will let you have lots of files open, and some machines will let you have less. But the software doesn't dictate how many files you can have open. What I'd like to do is close some workbooks now, so I'm going to switch back to Book 3. If I want to close Book 3, I think the easiest and most popular method is to hit the X in the top right corner, and this will simply close Book 3. And now I'm looking at Book 1. If I switch to Book 2, another way that I can close a window is by pressing the shortcut key. Now the shortcut key is Control-W because a file is a window, and so that's where the W comes from. Control-W is to close a window. Or I could add if I've added this button, as I did earlier, I could click this button to close a file. And if you added this button earlier, you could click this button also to close a file. If I want to close the file using the ribbon, I'll simply go to File and go Close. So I have the option to go File Close using the ribbon, back, or I could close the file using the button on the Quick Access Toolbar, or I could press Control-W, or I could hit the X in the top right corner. And there's even more ways than that, but that's probably enough ways for now. To close Book 2, I'm simply going to use the button. And that leaves me with Book 1. Now, if there was any data in Book 2 or Book 3 that hadn't been saved, it would have definitely asked us if we wanted to save. So it will not close a workbook and not save your information. Whenever you close a workbook, if there's any unsaved data, it will ask you if you want to save. We didn't have any data in Book 2 or Book 3, so we weren't asked. As far as entering data goes, I'm now in Book 1, I'm now in Sheet 1, and I'm in the cell A1. And in A1, I'd like to type one of my favourite dishes. So if I could have anything for dinner tonight, I might like to have a seafood curry. In A2, if I was to type a drink that I would like to have with that, it might be sparkling grape juice. So that's what I want you to do. In Book 1, in Sheet 1, and in A1, type your favourite food. If you could have anything for dinner tonight and you didn't have to plan it, cook it, or buy it, it just miraculously turned up in front of you, what would be your favourite dish to have for dinner tonight? And if you could have anything to drink, what would you like to drink with that dish in A2? And in A3, if you could have that special meal with just one person, anybody at all, who would that be? Type that in A3. Now what I'd like to do is save the fact that I've typed some information. And just before I do that, notice how some of the entries don't quite fit completely in column A. That might be the case with you as well. If that's starting to bug you, let's address that before we save this file. Column A is not wide enough to host what I've typed in A1 and A2. So what we do is we put our mouse on the line between the column letters A and B, and your mouse will look like this. When your mouse looks like this, simply double click, and it will best fit or widen the column to accommodate what you've typed. Best fit means that Excel knows exactly how wide or how narrow that column has to be when it looks from A1 down to A1,048,576 rows. Yeah. Now I'd like to save what you've typed. You've got two options. You've got a button here on your Quick Access Toolbar called Save. Notice the shortcut key is Control S. You've also got Save As, and the shortcut key is F12. Now, because we've never saved this file before, the computer will not know what to save this file as. It won't know what name to give it, and it won't know where to put it. So whether you hit Save here or Save As, you will be thrown into Save As because it's the first time you've saved this file. So I'm going to click the Save As button, and Excel will ask me, what do you want to save this file as? So at this point on the left-hand side, I'm going to save my file to the desktop. And towards the bottom here, I'm going to give it the name, click, list. So I just type, the file name is list. It's going to be an Excel workbook, and it'll be saved on the desktop. So I'll click Save. When I then look up at the top of my screen on my title bar, I can see the name of the file is now not Book 1, but List. I can see on my one full stop XLSX. You may not see that, and don't panic if you don't. This just depends on your Windows settings. In my Windows settings, I've actually told Excel to show me the extension of the file. So I can see that this is an XLSX file, which means that it's an Excel 2007 to 2016 file. But if you see list, then that's just fine. That's what it's saved as.